Over the last several weeks, I've received phone calls, emails, and had in-person conversations with people who wanted to know how they could support the podcast. At the time, I did not have a platform, so that stimulated several weeks of research to create a platform where everyone could support the podcast and it would not be exclusive. So I found a way through Patreon. To learn more about this, visit patreon.com/sports mastery. Welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, heroes and villains. I'm your host, DeShawn Fontleroy. I know your time is precious, so we're going to get right into today's show. In today's show, the title is Push Beyond Your Limits, Self-Belief. Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, procreation, war. To be successful in any area of human activity, do these three things. Clarify your vision. Surround yourself with a great team of people. And understand your beliefs. Your sense of who you are will determine your actions and what you end up getting in life. Your sense of self-worth comes from you and you alone, never the opinion of others. To start off today, I want to share some of my story with you, and you've heard part of it before as far as my college experience from Portland State to Portland Community College and finally ending at Western Oregon University. At the end of the day, I wanted to go to school to play sports, and that is exactly what happened for my first 4 or 5 years of school. And what I mean by that is I went to Portland State for 2 years. I took a couple of years off, with the exception of going to Portland Community College and taking electives here and there before finally transferring to Western Oregon, where I was there at Western Oregon University for 3 years before I graduated. Now, again, I said before, when I first got to Portland State, nothing but sports and partying. When I finally left there and enrolled in Portland Community College, I was going to class. I was taking classes, 6 units here, 10 units there, 3 units. And at the end of the day, I was just in school to have a title, just to say that I was in school or going to college. See, I really didn't have any purpose. I really didn't believe in myself. And I wasn't pushing myself to the limit at the time. Now, what essentially happened, I ended up getting some scholarship money some academic scholarship money, fortunately, to go down to Western Oregon for the first year. And as I said before, I'll say this again, I had no purpose. I was just interested in playing sports and partying. And part of this, it led to a sense of hopelessness, restlessness, lack of motivation, minimal studying, minimal training, really like hating school and actually like just feeling like a loser. That was part of my experience. After being at Western Oregon for 1.5 years, I had a miraculous moment. And that miraculous moment was simply going to meet with my college counselor to see what it would take to graduate. And I remember to this day, I had to go meet with my counselor, Bob Martin, and I asked him, what is it going to take to graduate? I've already been here for 1.5 years. I don't want to wind up being here for too much longer. So what we did was we drew up an outline of what it was going to take for me to graduate, the math classes that I would need to take, the courses that I would need to take to complete my minor, and the courses that I would need to take to complete my major. And we drew that out. And what it was going to take was being at Western Oregon another 1.5 years. So ultimately, I was down at Western Oregon for 3 years. But what happened after that, it opened up freedom and possibility because I could see the end of the tunnel. See, for a long time, going to Portland State and then taking time off and taking classes at Portland Community College, it seemed like I was going to be in fucking school forever and that I would never figure it out. And I would hear that from family members. I would hear that from friends. I would also hear that from haters that you're just going to be a professional student, So at a point in time where I felt like I wasn't going anywhere at all, Dr. Bob Martin helped me. He helped provide some clarity, and with that clarity, came a transformation because I started taking 15 credit hours per term. Then I started taking 18 credit hours per term. I was working 20 hours a week. I was still getting my studying in. I was still getting my training in. But now I had a sense of motivation. I started to gain some mental toughness as far as being at 8 o'clock classes every day and being there on time. I started to see that I needed time management to succeed with all the classes I was taking, the work that I was doing in terms of work study, and also doing the physical training part to stay athletic. So out of that came sacrifice, because I had to sacrifice, going out to parties. I had to sacrifice, playing the game system and having drinks in the evenings on the weekend. So with that, like I said before, if you're a student athlete listening to this, if you're a parent listening to this, if you're a coach listening to this, I want you to know how important it is for your student athlete, your kids, to consistently meet with their school counselor and always asking, what is it going to take to graduate, and seeing those courses on paper, what you have to take from term to term, quarter to quarter, or semester to semester. That's the only way that you can get this thing done in terms of graduation, whether you want to graduate from middle school, graduate from high school, go on and get an undergrad degree, and then maybe get your master's, or later go for your PhD. You have to have a system in place. You have to be able to communicate with your counselor, but more importantly, you have to take effective action. Before the action, you have to clarify your vision. And then once you clarify your vision, you have to surround yourself with a great team of people. In my case, it was my counselors, where I had 3 different counselors at the time. I had a counselor for my major. I had an African-American counselor. At the same time, I would just go to a study department, go to the different study halls, and then seek help from the people that were running the study hall. So I started to gather a team, and then I was hanging around other successful students who knew the path to graduation. So that was my team. And from there, I began to believe in myself, and when I began to knock down some doors and push the limits as far as like living and getting through exhaustion, as far as taking 18, sometimes 20 credit hours and working 20 hours a week and still finding time to train. You have to do that. So like I said before, if you're in a situation where you don't have any clarity, if you're in a situation where you're not surrounded by a great team, if you're in a situation where you can't see the end, there's a reason why you feel hopeless. There's a reason why you're going through those bouts of restlessness. There's a reason why you have a lack of motivation. There's a reason why you hate school or you feel a certain way about yourself. But like I said before, once you start to take charge, you find some clarity, you're going to see some freedom and possibility. And what's going to happen is it's going to lead to some progressions for you. And part of self-belief and pushing beyond your limits is you have to have a sense of purpose. For instance, let me ask you these questions. Is your life on repeat? Do you keep getting the same results in different activities? Do you still date the same types of people? Are you still on the same diet and still can't lose that fucking 15 or 20 pounds? Are you stuck at a 25-inch vertical and you've been there for like the last 3 years? Are you still at a 2.56 GPA? Are you still wearing sweats to school every day and wondering why you can't get a date? Is your power clean? Are you stuck at 205 and every time you attempt a 225 power clean, there's no chance of you getting it? Have you ever asked yourself why? How can you do things different? What is it going to take for you to overcome this plateau? Are you stuck at a 275-pound bench, but every time you go for that 315, you can't even get it off your chest? You have to ask yourself why. Because at the end of the day, patterns won't change until you change. And one of the first things you have to do is change your image of yourself. At some point when you're going through a struggle, you have to reinvent yourself. Take for instance, I'll give you a quote. To be the best, you have to beat the best. To beat the best, you have to be the best. Now, I'll give you 2 different scenarios. Take, for instance, Floyd Mayweather. You can say what you want about him from a social level, but at the end of the day, In his mind, he wanted to be the best boxer of all time. He wanted to go down undefeated throughout his career. And that's exactly what he did. And when you look at all the opponents that he faced in his era, they all lost, either to him or to each other. But he never made that mistake. He never gave up one loss. He never had an accidental knockdown or a knockout like some of his opponents did. You know, one of the things he did was he honed his defensive game to where his defense was like an impenetrable fortress, you know, if I may say that. At the end of the day, he learned how to box you for 12 rounds, get you exhausted and just beat you by points rather than making it an all-out slugfest and putting himself at risk for injury later in life. Now, on the other side of the coin, to be the best, you have to beat the best. And more recently, you can look at Nick Foles from the Philadelphia Eagles, who beat the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl. He did that. And if he hadn't have believed in himself, especially coming in being a backup after Carson Wentz went down, there would have been no chance for the Eagles to win the Super Bowl. Anyway, I'll go back to Floyd Mayweather because he epitomizes what I've been talking about earlier as far as having a clarity of vision and surrounding yourself with a great team. His dad was a boxer. His uncle was a boxer. So he always had his dad, Floyd Mayweather Sr. in his corner. He had his uncle, Roger Mayweather, in his corner. He always kept his mother and his kids around. You know, on the recovery side, you would always see him with his LMT. He always had a chef. He kept the same cut man. And more importantly, what I really appreciate about Floyd Mayweather is that his money manager has an MBA from Harvard. And that is the epitome, in my opinion, of having a great team. That's the only way you can go 48, 49, and 0. So with that said, when you have a purpose, when you're living by a purpose, your self-worth will increase. You will become more ambitious and you will have a certainty about everything. And I promise you, your energy will be intense and persistent. So at the end of the day, you can't allow yourself or develop a habit of getting caught up or distracted with the bling and the attention of the moment. All you have to do is keep working. If you do that, you will push beyond your limits. Keep your self-belief. And I promise you, keep your clarity of vision, surround yourself with a great team of people, and understand your beliefs. And I guarantee you, you will push beyond all limits. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're liking this show, head on over to patreon.com/sports mastery. There you can learn more about the mission of Sports Mastery. You can learn more about our goals for the podcast, and you can also see our rewards for being a supporter of the podcast. Peace and blessings, and thank you for listening.